Hi guys, today I'm going to be talking to you about ALS, which affects me personally as it's a family issue that I've experienced a great deal with and know a lot about. So let's get started. We all have been affected by the loss of a loved one, whether it be a friend, a brother, a sister, an aunt, a cousin, whoever. We all know what it's like to lose someone. That feeling of wonder that we get after they pass floods our minds from quite some time. We oftentimes wonder, why do good things have to happen to bad people, and why do bad things have to happen to good people? It's a question that never ever got explained to me. But because of the impact that my aunts made on my life, I am able to sit and speak about this today. So let's get started. So you're probably at this point asking yourself, what is ALS? ALS, or what doctors like to refer to as amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, is a genetic disease, and it affects the nerve cells in both the brain and the spine. A person with this disease may lack muscle nourishment, and their motor neurons die off, which prevents the brain from controlling muscle movement. So, going back to the Ice Bucket Challenge. The Ice Bucket Challenge was created so that we can be aware of what it feels like when motor neurons do die off. So, for instance, when someone has motor neurons die off, whether it be in their spinal cord or their brain, they may have parts of their body still be able to be mobilized. So, for instance, I may be able to move my hand, but I cannot move my feet. The parts of your body that you're still able to move around are extremely, extremely painful. And the other parts that you can't move may be stiff or numb. So you can no longer move certain muscles once the motor neurons die off. And depending on how rapidly this disease spreads, it can also affect the way that you breathe. So I hope you can understand why it may be hard for people with this disease to be able to talk, to eat, to write, to read, or even just to breathe. Moving forward, we have to understand that it also causes the person to be paralyzed. So, as I said, part of the body cannot be moved. It makes you lose control over your body as a whole, because once it spreads from one part, it will gradually spread to the other. And it can prevent you from being able to swallow. And that will often cause someone to suffocate. It also causes damage to muscles because of the lack of movement. And overall, there is no cure for this disease. So jumping ahead, we need to know how ALS is diagnosed. So ALS diagnosis requires a series of tests. After we've lost a loved one, so in my case, my family, we oftentimes have to go through lab testing, which may mean that it's missed in this case scenario. So if they cannot identify ALS through lab testing, they will move on to do a muscle or nerve biopsy. If they can't identify it from there, then a doctor might refer you to a spinal fluid analysis test, which is very painful and oftentimes is not recommended. And again, it doesn't always identify ALS. So, to get a better image of what's in the body and how this may be causing your body to deteriorate, it may be an option for you to get an X-ray or an MRI so that they can see a better in-depth image of what is going on inside of your body. But again, those options may not work. So, the doctor's last and final option to do for you, at least that we're not aware of at this point in time, is to put electrodes into your muscles and record the electrical activity throughout your body, which is stated by Johns Hopkins Medicine. Now that you know how ALS is diagnosed, let's move on to what to do if considering genetic testing, which is very important, especially if you plan on having children. So for genetic testing, they will require you to give blood or to spit in a tube, which is said by Hartsfield in her article. But oftentimes people will do this before they want to have children, because after they have kids, it doesn't matter as much anymore because there's really nothing that they can do. So, moving forward, if you've already given blood, some of the people that do so will decide to have their DNA banked, which means to store for future testing. Hartsfield also stated this in her article. For my family, they believe that the cause for my aunt's case scenario was due to creek water that was found on the family farm. But they found it also very fascinating that the person across the farm was also diagnosed. But moving forward, the cost for genetic testing is very expensive. For genetic testing, it can cost someone anywhere from $400 to $6,000. Hartsfield stated this in her article. But the downside to this is that it's not always covered by insurance. So, I would recommend consulting with family first. In conclusion, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis affects the nerve and the brain both. It's not easy to diagnose, and there's a long process for genetic testing and diagnostic testing. There is no cure to it, so please help to raise awareness. But if you have lost a loved one, especially those who have lost a loved one with ALS like my family has, I recommend counseling. It's the best way to deal with your grievances as I have dealt with mine. But if you're wanting to do genetic testing, please set money aside because it's very, very expensive. It can cost someone anywhere from $600 to $6,000. And again, that money is not covered by insurance always. So, to be on the safe side, I would recommend talking with your family first to make sure that it's really an option that you want to consider. Some family members will not do so, and in my family's case, they were unwilling to do it because most of the family members had already had their own children, and there was nothing to do to prevent this case. But above all, we have to understand that there's no cure. So, will you join me in fighting for the people that have already lost loved ones and for the people that are still fighting against this disease? It's important that we don't have to be a generation that is affected by something that causes someone to deteriorate so much. And it's even more sad that we have to have diseases that prevents people from being able to fulfill their basic needs. So help me in joining this team so that we can make a cure for ALS. Thank you.